Okay, well, thanks very much for having me, everyone, and thanks very much to Kathy for putting this on. So today I'm going to take you through some of the things that I do and my background. I also work in the metaverse sort of space and AR and AI. So I'm an artist and an innovation designer. I'm also a PhD neuroscience researcher specialising in human visual perception. And for my PhD, I'm based at ANU, and for my day job, I'm based at Deloitte Digital, and I work in their creative agency on their creative technology team. So I like to try and create a new way of thinking about digital experience. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey through some of the strategies and techniques that I use to enhance experiences in AR, VR and AI. Does everyone know what AR and VR is, this particular audience? Yep. Augmented reality and virtual reality. That's what I'll be talking about. So that can either be on a headset in the case of VR and some AR, and also augmented reality filters and things like that on mobile, which you may be familiar with. So I take a scientific approach to enhancing experience because of my background, and embrace playfulness and exploration in the design of technological experiences. My point of view is that is the importance of playfulness in sparking happy accidents and fostering these eureka moments through explorative design and creative experience, and having these open-ended experiences that aren't too directive to spark creativity. So a bit of context is I do work on the experience of what our digital lives is like and our online existence. So I explore the evolution and significance of our online digital lives and how we represent ourselves online on the internet and virtual spaces. So that could be avatars or things like that. And imagining new types of creative experiences we could have in these digital spaces and what new forms of creativity and expression may emerge. So how do I do that? So I like to focus in an area called neurodesign. So neurodesign is a term that's sort of been used since about 2018, so it's not super old. So neurodesign is really the practice of using scientific research, specifically about the brain and behaviour, to inform design decisions. So quite crucially, this is not neuromarketing. So neuromarketing is sort of on the other side, where you're measuring the outcomes and how people are reacting or behaving towards an ad or an experience. Neurodesign is on the other end and informing the design and informing that creative process. So crucially, it doesn't really take over the creative design experience. It's purely adding to it or augmenting it. So neurodesign can include things like neuroaesthetics, which is the science of how we perceive visual art, how we process visual images and designs, how things like first impressions work, visual saliency, which is how poppy something is, how much something stands out, behavioural economics and also accessibility. And these can be applied to either physical or digital spaces. So what does that actually look like? So I thought I'd just show you a bit of a case study. A project that I worked on back in 2020 was with Sephora France and Instagram Creative Shop. So Sephora France wanted to release a suite of perfumes when COVID was happening. So no one could actually visit physical stores. No one could go and try on perfumes in real life, which is a bit of a problem because that's a really crucial element of how we actually purchase that product and have that experience. So what we ended up doing is working together and creating a series of augmented reality wearable filters that were informed by scientific research related to how the perfumes were created. So we were trying to translate that sensory, olfactory sort of scent into a visual so that when people tried on the AR filter, they got a sense of as close as possible what it might be like to wear that perfume. So it sounds a little bit crazy, but it was actually quite successful. It was a really fun project to do. So they released 6 perfumes. We ended up creating just 3 filters. And they actually ended up selling better than Chanel No. 5 in France, which is a big thing, apparently. Like I said, I'm not so interested in the selling and the marketing side. I'm more on the experience and the sensory side. So this is what some of the visuals actually looked like. So I helped do the research and the strategy into developing the visuals, and a professional 3D modeler artist actually created the assets, and then I turned those assets into the filters which I built. So you'll notice that in some of these visuals, like the one on the left is matcha, green tea and mandarin, but there's actually no green tea or mandarins pictured because we looked purely at the sensory science research on green tea and mandarin, which looked at shape, texture, size, all those sorts of elements. And the same with the one that's mostly purple, the third one along. That one is blackcurrant and passion fruit, and there's actually no blackcurrant or passion fruit actually ever pictured, because it's actually more effective to have the individual abstracted elements shown rather than the fruit itself. It generates a stronger response in our brains. So, yeah, I can show videos, hooray. So, this is an example of some of the wearables, just a couple of little videos. There's no sound, but they sort of have like a underwater effect, just to give a bit more of a sensory element. And whenever you opened your mouth, they were also activated, which was pretty fun. So that one was mandarin and green tea. This one was blackcurrant and passion fruit. Yeah, so that one was kind of fun because you could actually try and eat it. So we had the, they're all activated by your mouth, and but they sort of do something a little bit different for each one. And this one was vanilla and sea salt. Sea salt was an interesting one because in terms of getting the idea of a scent is kind of a tricky one. Yeah. So, as you can see, those particular filters, there's a big element of playfulness. So why I'm actually attracted to creating these augmented reality filters is because they're a really accessible, easy way to get people into an art experience, really. So playfulness in this sense and letting people be in control of essentially a creative tool can spark creativity, and brain images show us that creativity is correlated with this thing called the activation of a default network. So that's a particular network between certain types of brain areas that are activated when we're doing something but we're not trying too hard at it, essentially. We're doing something that's not challenging and we're quite focused quite inward, so we could be gardening, walking or doing something creative like writing. And this particular state is felt as mind wandering, which usually involves thinking about yourself. So here's a little bit more playfulness in action and using these augmented reality filters as a creative tool for people. So this filter is called Draw Jelly, and there's actually some QR codes at the back of the room. When you get up and have a walk around, you can activate this and have a little go. This was one of my most successful filters, and it allows users to draw in 3D around their space. So it's been shown in a couple of different locations at different festivals and stores, and it's been used or played with over 85,000 times, which in terms of an accessibility for an art experience is pretty amazing. You know, if you did a show in real life in a gallery, you might be super excited if maybe 50 or 100 people came, but the idea of being able to put something out there and have, you know, tens of thousands of people use it is pretty amazing. So all up, all the filters I've ever done have been used over 5.3 million times. So they're quite accessible, I guess. So yeah, this one's just at the NGA in the Yayoi Kusama space a while ago. and you can see it allows you to draw in 3D. And I think it wasn't until I actually made this that I would realise how much people actually liked not just looking at a phone screen, but actually having to move around their space to activate it. So here's another shot of it. And by having it as in a transparent sort of jelly-like material, it makes it sort of feel a bit more visceral. Yeah. Yeah, so have a go with that when get a chance at the end of this. So in my more recent work, I've been expanding augmented reality with artificial intelligence programs. So that's a way for me to merge the neurodesign and the playfulness together. So a recent commission that I did was with Acme in Melbourne, and that was to produce futuristic AI beauty looks for their exhibition called Goddess, which focuses on women in film. So the idea was to imagine the idea of what a goddess could be like in the future, how we might represent ourselves in the future, and what might be possible in terms of a radical departure from how we look in everyday life. So I created a suite of AI imagery. And when I say I created a suite of AI imagery, it wasn't really just like going on a image generator for a couple of hours. This was like a solid month of like thousands, tens of thousands of images created, narrowed down to a set of several thousand, and then again to a few hundred, which was sent to curators, and then we did the final selection on which ones came through. But the idea was to focus on creating an experience which was playful for the user. So these AI images, the elements in these, were then adopted into augmented reality filters in an exhibition as part of an interactive, which you can see here. So it was sort of like a booth type situation where a user could sit down in front of it and turn a dial and see different imagery on top of their face, different digital wearables. So the focus here on integrating neurodesign was really trying to enhance the images through a focus on certain textures which were used in the development of augmented reality prompts that we used to create the images. So a prompt is a series of words which is used to create an image in AI. So these are some of the images that we used to create the filters. So in this particular project, I didn't build the filters. It was a different production studio. I just created this imagery. But this informed the sort of blobs and surreal, interesting sort of shapes that people could wear. So I think that I'll just sort of also mention some insights and tips to unlock creativity in these sorts of digital experiences. So there are three key areas really, and that is attitude and belief. So I think a lot of people believe that they're not creative, and that's a huge hindrance to their productivity and creativity. So creativity people do have special skills which have been honed over time, but anyone is actually capable of developing that. In terms of mindset, stress and high levels of cortisol are a huge destroyer of creative ability. We need people to be calm yet excited, which is actually a really difficult level to get. So I guess that's what I'm trying to sort of get with these augmented reality experiences, is getting people in the right mindset where they're excited and alert but not alarmed. So another big one is collaboration games. So I think that interesting objects and environments stimulate curiosity and creativity. And what I mean by interesting is usually something that's unusual or out of our everyday normal experience. So that will activate people's interest and allow them to stay in that experience for longer. And I believe that the future of digital experience in the metaverse and beyond will focus on these collaboration games where people are actually working together with each other, and also augmented reality systems to create in new types of creativity, new types of output, and new types of experience. So I'd just like to say thank you, and there's some references and cited material here. I didn't want to bombard you with neuroscience-y references. There's a QR code if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me any questions privately, but also please come up and speak to me later or ask me now. Also, if you want to try the filters, this is a QR code which takes you to my main Instagram page, and you can find all my filters that are live there. Alternatively, there's a QR code floating around at the back of the room which just has the Draw Jelly filter on it. And that's it from me.